I think that nothing's materially changed in the last 90 days, I think, relative to the chip situation. As you've heard from many of my peers and a lot of the folks that are in this space, the capacity build out takes a little bit of time. And so I've talked to a lot of the folks in the semiconductor side, and, they've indicated to me that they believe the second half of 22 is when we'll start to see improvement, with supply and demand sort of balancing out sometime in 23. So we got a ways to go here, but I think that we, like everyone else, are doing all the things that we can to manage our supply chain effectively right now and to get as much capacity as we can for the customer demand we're seeing.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. How much of this is just a function of demand that was clearly not expected pre-pandemic?
Well, I think that's right. If you go back to the early days of the pandemic, I think most of us began to signal to our supply chain that we assumed that the pandemic was going to cause economic compression, demand weakening, and in fact, we saw the exact opposite. So I think every industry signaled a perceived decline in demand, and almost every industry saw an increase in demand. So we created this gap. And I think we got to get through that. And I think we're on our way to do that. But then the overall demand with vehicles and semiconductors being in virtually everything is just creating incremental demand that we just haven't seen. So it's going to take a little while to build out that capacity.
Cisco designs its own silicone, but it doesn't manufacture it. When you think about the larger policy implications of this, there's a big move, obviously, to start to manufacture silicone, build more fabs in the United States, perhaps build some in Europe, given the questions about Taiwan and China ultimately. Are we doing enough? Are we moving fast enough?
Probably not. I think that I'm not sure we can move fast enough in this space. As you and I have discussed, I think that the fastest time frame you're going to be able to build a fab is probably in the 2 to 3 year time frame, and they're obviously expensive. I think that notwithstanding the geopolitical situation, we just need more capacity, and we should have capacity in the United States. Europe needs capacity. We need geographic diversity for issues of just climate and emergency situations so that we can manage our way through those. So I think we need to move faster, and I think that if you look at the example of the government with the public-private partnership around the vaccine development, I think that's a great example of how we can go after some of these issues with both, the government's engagement as well as the private sector's innovation.
Right. But, Chuck, at the moment, it appears that we are relying almost on one company, and that is Intel. And so the question that I'd ask you is, are there other companies, possibly even Cisco, that you think the government should be partnering with that has enough expertise? I don't know if they have the expertise, the same expertise, to be able to pull something like this off.
Well, I think like anything, you want multiple bets, right? And that's not a comment on Intel. I just think that we need more capacity. So Intel is going to do what they're going to do, and Pat is committed to delivering on that. But I think having other companies that have that expertise, we have expertise in designing silicon. We don't build fabs. We don't have that expertise, but I think that there should be other creative opportunities and creative ideas as to how we can get more players in this space and building out more capacity faster.
Are there others in the country that you think actually do have the expertise that we're not focusing on? Do the folks at Google know how to do this, do you think? Are there people at an Amazon or an Apple?
I think most of us have focused over the last decade or so on designing silicon. So all the companies that you mentioned have some aspect of designing their own silicon for different use cases. Ours is obviously for high-end networking. And some of the cloud players have built their own compute silicon and some of their own, acceleration silicon. But I think it's a very unique set of skills to actually build out the fabs. And given that most of us have been outsourcing it, I think we're going to have to go build some of that muscle over the next few years.